You're listening to Dear Strategy, where we answer all of your questions on product and business strategy. And now, here's your host, Bob Caporelli.
Welcome to another episode of Dear Strategy, where we answer all of your questions about product and business strategy. Real questions from real people in real companies, just like yours. Welcome back, strategy creators, to another episode. This is episode 95. Getting very close to 100 here. It's really exciting at the Dear Strategy studio, which is pretty much just me, but it's pretty exciting anyway. And, I'm really, really happy to have brought this many different episodes, this many different questions. And if you want to see all of these different answers that we've had, go out to dearstrategy.net or dearstrategy.com. They both work. You can ask a question to be featured on the show there. And you could also read every blog post that's gone with every single one of these episodes. Again, there's 95 different blog posts on there. So a wealth of information. At some point, I'll probably put these together into a book or something to make it easier to access for people. But it's all there. It's all free. So please check it out. Also, don't forget to go out and visit the sponsor of this show, Strategy Generation Company. That's the company I founded and also work for, of course. And we can be found at strategygeneration.com. We offer tools and training and resources and toolkits and all kinds of great things that are both free and, of course, paid. So go out and check out what we have to offer there, especially if you are, inside of a large company or a medium-sized company and you're looking to train a team of product managers, marketing managers, business leaders on the subject of strategy. We have just the products for you. So strategygeneration.com is where you can find that. Please go check that out. Okay, while you're doing that, got all that out of the way, let's go ahead and get to today's question, which is, Dear Strategy, how do we best handle having engineering and innovation groups working in different locations than the manufacturing groups? i.e., how do we manage the long-term strategy for manufacturing engineering in two different locations? So pretty straightforward, I think. You have manufacturing plants that are probably scattered across the country or the world, and you have engineering/innovation teams that are not located in those manufacturing plants. I would say this is a very, very common situation. Of course, I have seen, especially in medium-sized to smaller-sized company, where engineering and innovation are in the same facility as manufacturing, so that facilitates communication in a lot easier way. But I think it's probably more common in larger companies to see this situation where engineering and innovation is in one location and then manufacturing is in a completely different location. Now, this question, of course, was asked by someone in engineering and innovation, so they're focused around the innovation type strategy, which is perfectly fine. But you could probably ask this question about just about any function. Now, a couple of weeks back, or a couple of episodes back, I should say, I answered this question with respect to global product management teams versus regional product management teams. So you can go back a couple episodes and check that out. And what basically I said there is that global product managers really need to be in the regions that they support. So if you have a global product strategy, you have to make sure that you spend time in whatever regions that strategy is applicable to, if it's Latin America, Asia, North America, wherever it is. And that means if you have regional product managers, you need to spend time in those regions, understanding the culture, understanding the way that those customers behave, what those customers care about. And I said there that there's, maybe a little controversially, by the way, that there's really very little way that you could do that via, long distance chat, right? You have to spend time understanding those regions. So you would think that my answer to this question is going to be similar where, well, look, the obvious answer if you're, a great distance apart is spend time in those facilities. But in fact, I'm going to give a little different answer in this respect, because unlike product management, where you really need to be close to the customers, and there's no way to do that via long distance, video conferencing or chat or whatever else in an effective way. In other words, you have to feel the culture, right? You have to feel what their needs are. You have to observe them in action. You can't do that via, two-way chat. However, when you're talking about engineering and manufacturing teams, I think you can do some of that via distance technology, right? Whether that's video conferencing or phone conferencing or whatever else. I do think that more of that is possible, because I don't think it's necessarily required that engineering and innovation spend an inordinate amount of time in the plants, understanding the manufacturing process. I mean, clearly there are times when that has to happen, right? During pilot productions, some parts of innovation in the development process. I mean, you clearly want to have a connection to those manufacturing facilities. You clearly want to understand what's going on there. You clearly want to understand their pain points as well. But I don't know that it's as required to be there on as frequent a basis as you would for an external customer. In addition, I think that there are many ways that you can capture what's happening in a manufacturing plant via long distance type technologies, because what's happening in a manufacturing plant isn't generally emotional. It's usually technical, right? There's ways that machines operate and ways that things are happening in the plant, processes that are being followed. And those things can be communicated via phone, via chat, via video a little bit more easily, I think, than you can in trying to capture that for a customer. In addition, when you try and capture customer feedback in that way, you're putting the customer out, right? You're asking them to adapt to your needs and your technology. And I don't think that always works. But when you're doing that with a manufacturing facility or engineering facility, those are your facilities, right? So if there's a little extra pain that they have to go through to set up the video and, make sure that the technology is there so you can share the learning, then I would say, that's fair game, right? Because it's inside your own company. So I do think that those things can be reconciled without having to be in the same location. Now, with that said, do I think that those groups should visit one another? Absolutely, right? Especially engineering visiting the manufacturing plants. Again, there are certain times during the engineering, the work that engineers have to do, that you will need to go visit the manufacturing facility. Like I said, during development, during pilot production, certainly during, checkups as the product is being, industrialized and the process is being formally introduced. So those types of things are definitely going to warrant visits. But outside of that, I think you can do a lot of it remotely. Now, even though I'm in favor of using technology, that doesn't mean that happens automatically, right? You still have to set up the meetings. You still have to have the discipline. You still have to adopt the technology. I remember a few years back, did work with a company that made robots that actually were remote robots, right? You could actually remotely control them. So you can have this robot that goes around the manufacturing floor and you can actually view things and talk to people and so forth. There's some expense to that, but it seemed to be really cool, right? It's like a way to be there in the manufacturing facility or whatever facility you're trying to be at without actually physically having to be there. So I loved it. I thought it was great. I thought it could be really effective for that type of a purpose, but you have to invest in it, right? Similarly, you have to make sure you have the weekly meetings, in some cases daily meetings, if there's an ongoing project that requires daily communication. You have to make sure that you're setting up the cameras in the right places if you are going to be viewing things remotely. So I think the failure isn't in the technology. The failure is in just not using the technology or not investing in the technology. So I would definitely recommend that if you're in this situation, make sure that you have the right equipment and you know how to use it and you're willing to set it up and that you have the discipline to do that. A lot of manufacturing facilities will, get involved in what they call Gemba walks, right? Or some variation thereof, where they go from station to station, sometimes every day, every morning or whatever, and they review what's happening at that station. There's usually a board that gets reviewed with the management team or whoever is joining the walk at that time. And it's just a way to make sure that all parts of the plant are staying into communication with one another, and they're also staying in communication with leadership or any of the outside people that need to understand what's happening in the plant on a day-to-day basis. Really, really great tool. So why not have one of these, remote robots set up to go on those Gemba walks, right? And that remote robot can be controlled by various different people or viewed by various different people in remote locations. So every day you're joining the plant walk. I think that's really, really effective and a really effective use of technology. But again, you have to make sure you have the discipline to do it. So that's really the answer. Now, if you can be close together, great. I'm always in favor of that. I think that's always going to be better to some extent. But if you can't have that, I do think this is an area where technology can lead the way. and can replace some of that face-to-face interaction. So again, I hope that's a helpful answer. If you have a question you want to be featured on the show, just go visit us at dearstrategy.net or dearstrategy.com. They both work. You can click on the Ask a Question link and you can ask a question to be featured on the show. Please do that because we are starting to run a little bit low. We certainly have enough questions to get us through episode 100, but definitely are looking for more. So please help us out and go do that. And while you're doing that, don't forget to make time for the plan. We'll see you back here on another episode of Dear Strategy. Thanks for joining.
Thank you for listening to Dear Strategy with Bob Caparelli. To learn more or to submit a question to be featured on our show, please visit us at dearstrategy.net.